as a husband, here's what I'm supposed to do. Okay, cool. And then I implement that as much as possible to the best of my ability. Then the wife does her part in the marriage and she implements what God has already laid out. So I think here we go. Thank you all for uh, coming into another episode of His Wife, Her Husband.
I am Shamika, his
I
wife,
am Patrick, her husband, and our purpose is to help you build
and sustain your marriage.
from a biblical perspective. So we're going to talk about today why are divorces just as high in the Christian, um, I guess, what arena,
Christian
Christian
homes.
homes as much as it is in the secular homes, and we're just going to kind of give you um, what our thoughts are toward that, why we think that is, and then hopefully you guys can give your comments and the reasons why you think so as well. Hey, if you're out there and you're looking to take your marriage forward and you know, hey, listen, we're good, but we want to see how we can improve. Shamika and I are certified marriage and life coaches, and we'll be happy to have a discovery conversation with you to see how we can help you improve on your marriage. Just go to our website, www.hiswifeherhusband.net, www.hiswifeherhusband.net, and sign up for a discovery call. We do coaching as couples and we do individuals. So if you're looking for coaching as a couple, in the subject line, make sure you put the word his wife, her husband. Husbands, if you're looking just for coaching for yourself, make sure in the subject line you put her husband. Wives, if you're looking for coaching for yourself, make sure you put in the subject line his wife, and we'll give you a call and we'll be happy to work with you. So it's no stranger, or it's no stranger. That's not the right thing. Yeah, it's no stranger to the fact that divorce is high in both arenas. For me, my main reason I think that divorce is that way. I was talking to somebody a while back. I forget who I was talking to, but I think as far as believers are concerned, one of the things that we stop doing is that we stop listening to Christ. I believe that there should not. Let's go back. Number one, we automatically assume that because people go to church that they're Christians. Number two, we automatically assume just because they say they're Christians that they're saved. So people just look at that, and so the assumption is, well, they're Christians, they're saved, they go to church, and that's not always the case. Everybody that's professing has not really believed in their heart, so therefore it kind of really takes them out of the Christian arena. But anyway, nonetheless, for those of us who are believers, my viewpoint is somewhere along the way we've stopped listening to the voice of the Lord. In other words, there's a text, I think it's 1 Peter 3, chapter 7. It says that for the husband, if he doesn't want his prayers to be hindered, then he needs to deal with his wife with understanding. So now that puts you in the point where, okay, how do I understand my wife? How do I deal with her with understanding? And that puts the husband in the face of God all the time, trying to make sure that he is doing right by um, by God's daughter. So I think that's one of the things as the reason why divorce becomes so high in the Christian arena. What you think?
Yes.
What are your thoughts toward as to why do you think that is high in the Christian world? We know we got it's the what they call the secular world, but what are the Christians missing that divorce becomes high in the Christian world as well?
Yeah. Uh, that, so I think when it comes to both, the idea, the notion of unforgiveness and not
Hmm.
being willing, and unwillingness. Let me say that, and unwillingness and unforgiveness. I think that they go hand in hand, and it keeps couples severed. You
Hmm.
know, through situations that may happen and occur from living and sharing life together.
Right.
I do believe that when it comes to it being high in the aspect of Christians, I think you said it well that we just assume that churchgoers are godly,
Mm-hmm.
that they actually have a working relationship with the Lord, and they're really trying to love Him with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to do that towards their spouse in this situation, but it says to your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we drop the ball or fail to go to the author and the creator of people,
Hmm.
in particular your spouse, then that is a recipe for dissension, separation. It's a recipe or an atmosphere for disorder, dysfunction, disruption.
Yeah.
Like, and then the last one is divorce. Like, you don't want to hear it. You
Yeah.
just want to give up. So it's very important that, especially those of us that are professing to be Christians, and how I love to say it, to be believers
Mm-hmm.
in Jesus Christ and in the Word, and having a working, living relationship with God, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit,
Mm-hmm.
then it is to our advantage not to ignore the Bible, because that is our constitution. Like, that's
That's
how
good.
we function on earth. That is, we have the words, and we have, you know what? Basically, we have the mind of God
Mm-hmm.
in manuscript.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting? Manuscript,
Mm-hmm.
manuscript, like the man, manuscript. Okay, anyway,
Uh-uh.
yeah, right. Anyway, it's a script for man to do. Is what I'm saying.
Right.
It's for us to live it out. But many of us, I think that we have gotten caught up in the traditions and expectations of what marriages should look like, and that we don't really know what the word says about the institution of marriage. And so we just kind of going off the fly. But yeah, I do believe that the reason why it is higher, higher in Christian homes is because God has still been etched out, and or
That's good.
and or the scriptures are not really known, and a working relationship with the Lord is not present. But I say this delicately, and I say this with all sensitivity, because that does not mean that it still won't happen to the most godly man or woman of character.
But that's what. So that's my point where I feel like I. So I think that's where I believe, or I don't believe that's true. So for me, well, let me say it this way: if what you're saying, I believe what you're saying, that if both parties are developing their working relationship with Christ, I just don't believe, I don't believe that divorce will happen in the Christian arena, because both the believers are working or developing their working relationship with Christ. Both believers are. I'm not talking about disagreeing, because we're all going to disagree. Both believers are studying the script to know what their lines are. I'm being,
To
whatever,
follow,
to
they learn
follow.
the script to follow. Yeah.
So here's what, as a husband, here's what I'm supposed to do. Okay, cool. And then I implement that as much as possible to the best of my ability. Then the wife does her part in the marriage, and she implements what God has already laid out. So I think that's we're kind of like what you were saying earlier. There's this free flow that we feel like we can do when God has created a divorce proof manual for marriage.
Yeah.
There's a trouble he has taken care of troubleshooting. I'm thinking about a manual for a VCR or for something, or electronic.
What's a VCR?
I just
I'm
showed
just
my
playing.
age. They don't even know what a VCR. That's crazy, because some people may not know what a VCR is.
What's a VCR? Mercy.
Aura. So so then we have to go back. This is good. We have to go back to the basics. Get back to the basics of biblical teachings. We're straying away. This is good. I think this is good too, because we got higher education. We've outsmarted ourselves from God, knowing or not understanding that there's no higher education or there's no higher wisdom than God's wisdom about everything.
Yeah, I like how you said that too. It's like trying to go to, um, basically, let me say it like this: God is the creator of humanity.
Hmm.
Oh, and as you said, our education has gotten so sophisticated that we didn't etch God out, so we don't need to ask Him anything about human interaction and
Hmm.
behavior. When that is really what the Scripture is all about. It's
Right.
about humanity, relationship, broken relationship with the Lord, the Heavenly Father, His love for us, and His passion for us to send His Son to redeem us, to be reconciled back to Him. And He shows and teaches us how to interact with one another.
Hmm.
As soon as we decide that that's antiquated, that's old, we don't function like that anymore.
Yeah.
At that point, that's when the breakdown begins. That's when the dysfunction and the disorganization begin. Why? Because you've left your source.
Mm.
You've left the source of your existence, of you
Hmm.
thriving and living.
Hmm.
And so it's just like, I would say anything else, you can be full for a minute, but each exertion of energy, you constantly using that energy and it's dwindling away until you are completely empty, and then you spun out,
Hmm.
and now it's time for a divorce.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, again, we thinking about in that aspect of marriage. And so, again, once you lean to your own understanding, once you once you are not
That was the
seeking.
key right there. Lean to
Uh-huh.
your own understanding. That
Yeah.
was the key.
And look, and that is in so many areas, of our lives.
That's
When you
good.
begin to link to your own understanding for your finances, your own understanding for your education, your own understanding for who you want to be with and who you don't want to be with, the school you go, like it's so many things. But as soon as you link to your own understanding, and that does not mean that you cannot have understanding. It's when you lean only on your own understanding and you no longer acknowledge God.
Right.
That's when you begin to err in the way.
So again, to be redundant on purpose, the reason divorce. This is just me. Maybe I'm naive for believing this. I just believe that I believe that there should never be divorce among believers. People say, no, that's not realistic. I believe there should never be divorce among believers. And to go back again, to be redundant, if there is a situation where couples are about to, I guarantee you can look at the believer's walk and see that they have somewhere, somehow,
Error in
begin
the
to
way.
walk away from God. And as my wife so eloquently said, begin to began to lean to their own understanding. So here's my questions for you, for those of you who are out there, whose marriage is that way,
What way?
that it's leaning toward being they're getting divorced, that
Mm-hmm.
it's leaning toward separation. See, like, figure out what your part is in terms of what did you do.
Pause.
Hmm.
That's another great, uh, I'll say, a great assessment point
Hmm.
is that when it comes to your marriage, remember it's two. It requires two individuals, and it's a blending of one.
Hmm.
And so, with that being said, it cannot only be the other spouse's fault.
Correct.
It can't be their fault alone. That you may be doing better now, but you have to look back at maybe where you have dropped the ball. I put it like this: you can be negligent, or you can be I don't know another N word, um, but basically,
Naive.
yeah, yeah, that's a good one. Negligent, naive, and you probably were negative and you contributed to
Mm-hmm.
this atmosphere of I don't want to love you. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're mean, you're hateful. Maybe you were not easy to love or easy to, when the spouse would give you a gift, you were murmuring and complaining and never satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
So it may not be in a case of infidelity, but it's just a case of you are knowing like you're not pleasant to live with, and so that may have led to the stepping out or whatever the case may be. I don't know, I just made up a scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But to go back to your point that you made, I do want to emphasize that a part of being um, a mature man or woman, to being mature in your marriage is taking responsibility for what is happening right now. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because I am the person that's involved. I wouldn't dare just shift it all on you when I know that maybe I could have done better. Work, it's like you do a reassessment. Well, I noticed that he always say that when I get flowers that I hate roses. You stupid. You don't you I like lilies. I don't know.
Right.
But it's things that we could have communicated better, that maybe we were in our feelings or in our flesh and we just didn't communicate it well. So we kept chipping away and closing that door to communication. So
All right. So the couple, so one, so one spouse knows what their contribution was to
that's
the reason
good.
why
That's
the
good.
marriage.
That's what I was saying, Patrick.
So
Thank
let's
you.
say that this one spouse understands their contribution to why the marriage it's
It's falling
almost over
apart.
with.
Yeah, it's unraveling. Let's say
It's
that.
it's extreme is hanging on by a thread.
Mm-hmm.
Now I realize, wait a minute, I've done this.
Mm-hmm.
What then do you do, because the spouse doesn't want it anymore?
Mm-hmm.
There isn't any infidelity.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't any abuse.
Mm-hmm.
They are on what they call irreconcilable differences, which is a lie in the Christian arena. There should not be any irreconcilable differences if the people are there to still reconcile. There may be. Well, let me take that back, because you can come with, you can do your best to reconcile. You will have forgiveness, but there might not necessarily be reconciliation all the time. But let's just, the spouse is there
Mm-hmm.
because the scripture only gives guidance for divorce for adultery. There is no adultery.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help that couple? What advice do you give to that particular person?
I'm glad you asked. But yeah, so in that case, my advice would be to first um, work on your relationship with the Lord to repair it. And I say I know that seemed like a churchy answer,
Hold on,
but
break it down for me, because
I'm
I
getting
missed it.
ready to. So a lot of times when you know that you do not have grounds to dissolve your marriage, and it's like I have to resolve
Mm,
that I have to function well in this given role that I agreed to.
yeah.
So now it's like, okay, reset. Don't try to fix them. Don't try to fix the marriage technically. But you make the correction on your role within this marriage, and you will see that it'll begin to align.
I'm
And
I'm doing that, and I'm tired.
so,
I'm tired. I've been trying to do that. It seems like nothing I do works. I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. What?
all I can do is tell you that you will have to really and truly depend on the Lord. And I say that, I'm not just saying that church answerly. And then you also have to have, I would say, begin to look for friends or accountability,
That's
like
good.
some people that you can just you can be transparent as you can with them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to tell all your business,
Mm-hmm.
but you do need to say, hey, Patrick and I are hurting right here. Can you help me with how to heal this? And so it could be as simple as um, representing yourself in the marriage. Like, instead of saying we need to talk, how about you ask,
This is
let's
me
go.
talking to the spouse, right? Okay.
So now at this point I was begin to give ideas or approaches on how to cultivate communication, but not rush that person to talk.
Is there a time to give up? Is there ever a time to give up and throw in the towel? When
I
we're not talking about abuse. We're not talking about infidelity.
We're not talking about outlandish thing. I mean,
Correct. Correct.
yeah. So I believe that no, that there is not a time to give up. I do believe that there is a such thing as mental and physical fatigue. So you do need to step away to reset. And again, rest is a discipline that many of us want to overlook because we just want to serve, 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 serve. But the best caregiver has to first care for themselves.
That's good.
So that's why I was saying it's okay to step away and take a break just so that you can get your mental focus and stamina up so that you can be there to take whatever backlash. And when I say backlash, I don't mean like negative talk, but just the resistance that may come from their spouse because they have a history of being bruised. They have more broken-hearted pieces than pieces of their heart, like their heart being their peace, and that's a real thing. Like you may even be there now where there's no peace in your home, there's no peace in your mind. It's just I'm just frustrated. I'm at my wits' end. Life will not stop, and this what I have learned my 40 plus years of living is that if you don't stop and step away, life will not you know, stop and slow down for you. You're going to have to figure out how to say, you know what, y'all keep going. Let me catch my breath because I'm exhausted.
Right.
I just need to breathe for a minute.
So what does that look like if a spouse says, I want to step away, I need to get a breather? What is like literally what does that look like? Is that take a weekend to yourself? Is it separation in the marriage? Like what? So I think that's probably where we might where we're about to probably disagree, because I wouldn't say separation, but I will say you probably need to get away, whatever.
Yeah.
Or you're saying yes to both because you
I'm
start
saying,
shaking your head.
yeah, I was gonna say yes. It's to both, and I say that again very delicately because I don't want it to be like it's just "Well, I'm separate because like that's your get out of jail card. That's not what I'm saying. But then only you and your spouse would know the hostility and the tension that's in the home, and it's in our best interest to just miss each other for a minute. Like I'm really like, especially if you have a good relationship with maybe your father, mother, your siblings, or whatever, and you can just kind of get away for a week or two, just that you can just have a chance to really soul search and look within yourself to find out what am I doing, what could I do, how can I be a better, how can I represent myself to my spouse. And sometimes you have to get out of the environment because this is probably where a lot of heartaches and hardships happen. So let me get out of this atmosphere so that when I come back, I can better assess, oh, yeah, I need to do this and do that. And let's rearrange this. Let's do that. And again, going back to what you said, sometimes marriage retreats work. In some cases, it's for just one to get away, because especially if children involved. One of the spouses may want to, may need to stay to care for the well-being of the child, while the other go away. Then in some cases, you may have help, and both you and your spouse can get away and just get in a new environment, nature, and just kind of walk and just step away from life. If you can't necessarily step away because you still have to work and all of that, then I would advise that maybe you find a small group or
That's good.
something in a church. And even if your local church don't provide marriage small groups, there are plenty of other local bodies within your community that offer that,
Right.
that you can then begin to build a working marriage community so that you can receive that help and healing that you need. And remember, the purpose for getting the help is not to bash your spouse or even for you to hammer in on yourself with these feelings of guilt. or regret. It is for you to work towards healing and wholeness so that you and your spouse can have a thriving, healthy relationship.
It's good. Good information. Anything else?
Just be encouraged in doing this good godly work, and remember that marriage it is from the mind of the Lord. That a marriage license cannot anymore validate or authenticate. Let me say it cannot authenticate a marriage relationship. That it is a requirement of you, both you and your spouse, saying yes to the Lord,
Right.
and we love each other enough to get the validation or to get the credential, the proof that we meant yes to each other.
Yeah.
But that license don't mean that it's a for sure yes. You
Which mean
doing
it's a for sure yes. What does that mean? What you mean?
now, basically a marriage license don't make you married. You showing up make that marriage work.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's kind of a play on words and idea,
Mm-hmm.
but I just a lot of times people feel like when we get married, things gonna get better.
Correct.
No, that is not always that is not the case. It's you showing up your 100% 10 best, and the other person willingness and faithfulness to show up their 110% best makes it 110% marriage. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to know that no paper again can authenticate that God has
I
done
guess
that.
that's the word. I guess that's what the word keep throwing me off. You're saying authenticate.
Make it
So
genuine, make it like coming from your heart. You can have the paper and still hate a person.
so just because you have the license, that doesn't automatically make marriage successful.
Correct.
You have to put the work in. You
Correct.
have to take the time out to put the time in to your marriage.
Yes.
To your first of all, because this is where we're saying this is why answering the question why do Christians get divorced, is because we've taken time away from the Lord, which also means we're not following directions of the Lord to make time for our spouses. Because a lot of times, especially for Christians or people who claim Christianity, they think doing ministry work is God,
And that is
and
not.
that's not the case. Ministry work is ministry work. My personal relationship with God, meaning in prayer and in His Word, that's how I build a relationship with God. And you're not gonna be in that all day, which you can't spend time with your husband or your wife. Go ahead.
And I was going to even and add to that that it's even walking with him in every single area of your life. You don't just have your 6 a.m. morning devotion and then at 6:30 you leave God there and I'll be back in the morning. No, he's going to work with me. He's going to the supermarket with me. He's going to the gas station with me. As I'm traveling through this life, I am doing my best to live and to live out that devotion that I had earlier. Like that's what that is.
So, sorry. So the cliche is, what would Jesus do? So, if I could, I think based on what you're saying, because a person will say, well, how do you do that? Is always acknowledging God in everything that I do. You know what I'm saying? If I do this, how does this? Would God be pleased with this? So in the book, The
How would
Slight
this
Edge, is
affect?
it The Slight
Excuse me.
Edge? I think it's The Slight Edge. It's one of those books that we were reading that the person asked, oh yeah, it was The Slight Edge. The question was asked, is this going to be a liability or an asset to my life? This decision I'm about to make, is it going to add to it or take away? So in every decision we're about to make, the question should be asked, does this honor God or does this not honor God? And then that kind of helps you make the wise decision. And then we're talking about for marriage. Does this decision I'm about to make, does it honor God in my marriage? Or does it dishonor God in my marriage? And so therefore by
And
always, go ahead, uh-huh.
I'm saying, and in addition to that, will this bring honor to my spouse,
That's good.
or will this bring dishonor and pain to them?
So one of the things to go again, again, this is my belief, why why Christians get divorced is they don't submit one to another. So in the text where it talks about why submit to your own husband, the very verse before that, as 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 brothers and sisters in Christ, it tells us to submit ourselves one to another. In other words, I am I am consciously making a decision to place myself under the care for some of another. You know what I'm saying? So but that does take growing relationship. It takes building, just like with any relationship, and over time, it becomes easier to do. Are y'all with me? Like they can, whatever. But it becomes easier to do the more I do it. So you learn how to drive, or you go
That's
through
exactly where I
driving
was
school.
going. Again, it's going back to that license. A license does not mean that a
You're a good
person know how
driver.
to drive.
Wait a minute, they're not a good
They
driver.
not a good driver or
Experienced
experienced
driver,
driver.
right?
That requires hours of practice, being in different traffic situations, navigating and merging, and then guess what? Confidence in being able to navigate through helps them to say, hey, I can do this. I can overcome this. And I was going to go there with the marriage license. And that's what it's like. Just because you have that doesn't mean that you got all the practice hours and all of the things that you need. It's going to require you actually implementing what the Lord has said. Like, how do I love this person or cherish them, or how do I respect them and honor them above others? That requires day by day decisions and actions, and before you know it, you will be able to submit.
Yeah.
You will be able to faithfully love and care, and even pay attention to their mannerisms and their looks, and you can tell when they're hurting or when they're happy without them even saying a word. That comes from spending time and living life together.
That's it. That's all. Hey, don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not subscribed. Make sure you comment on this. Let us know what you think about what we were saying. Maybe, are there other reasons why you think Christians have, decided that divorce is best rather than sticking it out, as well as make sure you share this video, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Bye.